Hi all, welcome to our second set of the Icon wishlist. This will obviously be this full release, I believe, of all icons is later today. So we've been working on this second set. As you can see, Keegan, Banks and Law kind of going UK themed, and I would honestly say they could be some very nice cards. Hopefully you enjoyed the first set, folks. So let me know in the comments down below obviously who else you fancy. I've tried to keep away from those that they've announced, like Pirlo, Ian Wright and so forth. I'd kind of worked away from them anyway, but I had looked at English icons anyway because I felt there'd be quite a few. So my first shout is Passarella, legendary Argentinian centre back, won the World Cup with them in the 70s, and he kind of defined how to be a centre back in the day for a lot of players, kind of now of the modern era. And it was kind of like 94 rated at his peak of his powers for when they won the World Cup would kind of be a lot of sense. He won the European Cup in 1977 and he was part of the 1986 World Cup squad, and I would say that would kind of make sense for all three versions. But if you've got a near 80 pace centre back for a prime icon, that is what I would call very tasty. Savori, another one of the legendary Argentinians. For what I've seen of him, his main attributes are his shooting and dribbling, and they stand out immensely. Like, the only problem is his height. He's 5'4", that would be what goes against him. But he won the Ballon d'Or in 1961, he got the domestic double in 1960, and he was part of the Coppa delle Alpi with Napoli in 1966 for his base icon. But physical, as I said, will be an issue for those that like a bit physical on their strikers. But it still looks a nice card. Alan Simonsen, the Danish forward, he is regarded one of the greatest Danes of all time, for what I've heard from a lot of folk. His 1977 Ballon d'Or win was kind of unheralded in 1977 because he was Danish, and it was kind of, Denmark didn't get into the latter stages of competitions, but he proved everyone wrong. His mid icon is for when he was at Barcelona, and his base icon is when he was at Vieja for his first stint. You could maybe go for his second stint, but not going to be the most appealing, but nice dribbling on him regardless. Uwe Seeler, another iconic German forward. To be honest, there's tons of like iconics. He is in because of his 50 goal season in 1959-1960, part of the World Cup squad in 1958, and then 1954 was his base icon. What he prides on is his shooting, and very, very physical. He is 5'7", so it will be interesting to see how he would be utilised, but he may be one of those icons, because he's a bit further back, will be hard. Now this is the one icon, if he happens, I will love this game. Gaetano Scirea is honestly one of the greatest defenders of all time, regardless. Like, Maldini's heralded as amazing, Scirea is honestly one of the greatest. This guy was honestly a legend for what he achieved in football, and he's like won everything. He won UEFA Cup in 1977, European Cup in 1985, and the World Cup in 1982. He's done it all, and honestly it would be a godly centre back, even though he's in at 5'10", good decent height. Hugo Sanchez, like, I think a lot of people have predicted him, and I actually think he will happen. I get that feeling. Good pace, good shooting, good physical, good dribbling. I've maybe been a little bit light on the stats, I will be honest, because obviously he was an iconic player for Real Madrid in the 1980s. I would say that some people have touted like 92, 93. I just went 91. I just went just +1 on Hernandez. But we'll see, and we'll take it from there. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, famous German forward who had been part of like the Bayern setup for like the last 40-50 years. His base icon is for his stint with Bayern in the 70s, then his first World Cup moment for his mid icon, part of the shootout for that, and then in 1980s he was part of the Euro squad. 91 pace, 94 shot, 81 dribbling, 88 dribbling, 81 physical, 6 foot in height, so decent pace for a 6 foot striker, 6 foot tall striker. Definitely very usable, I would say. Riva is another Italian May feature, someone that may not instantly spring to mind, but definitely Gigi Riva helped win Calgary the title in 1970. He is like regarded like an icon to them, part of the 1968 Euros squad, and then he had early retirement due to his like injuries and so forth. Kind of justifies his base icon, but very commanding striker with good shooting and physical for 5'11". I would imagine could have like 90 plus strength. Gunnar NORDAHL was one Swede that I had to include. I know is it Ravelli was a icon that was in Classic XI, but Gunnar NORDAHL is regarded one of AC Milan's greatest players. That's worn their strip. He has, like what he's achieved for that club was unbelievable, and would be someone that I think a lot of Swedes especially would be delighted with. For what I've seen of his physical, 95 could be insane. Good shooting, decent pace, good dribbling to go on as well, and I would imagine very, very useful. JOHNSTONE, another player that kind of where Cruyff went, NEESKENS went, and I would imagine he could be someone in that 80 plus club as well. Definitely a very useful part of Ajax, Barcelona, and 1974 World Cup final. You kind of see a trend. We've mentioned quite a lot of Dutch icons that have kind of featured from the 70s. So you may find that golden generation of the 70s might see a couple feature. So don't be surprised. Mazzola, this guy had another famous moustache in football throughout like the 70s. Absolute machine when you look at these stats, I would imagine, because he's got very good physical, very good pace, good shooting and passing, and I would honestly say he could be someone that I wouldn't rest too lightly on. Like, the reason why I kind of fancy him is because of what he achieved in the 60s and 70s with winning European Cup, European Championships in 1968 and the World Cup in 1970. Josef Masopust is another iconic player, one of the greatest players for Czech Republic. Obviously in modern times is Nedved. In the 60s was Masopust. He won the Ballon d'Or in 1962, won the European Cup in 1960, part of the 67 period, and then Molenbeek as well. He played later in his career for them, but I would say the European Cup may be potentially close to his prime, but time will tell. Then Meyer, when you think of famous goalkeepers, he is kind of up there for what he achieved in the 70s, kind of like one of the original like sweeper keepers. His base icon was for his 1972 Euros, then his Bayern peak in the 70s, and then he won the treble in 1974. And I would kind of say, while the stats might be a little exaggerated for a 93 rated, I would kind of not neglect that happening. Dennis Law had to include a Scottish icon, obviously, which, as you saw in the thumbnail, he was part of he was top scorer and got the Ballon d'Or in 1965, played a part in the 1963 FA Cup, and then for his base icon is the second spell at Man City. Depends what they kind of go for, because they might go for when he was in Italy, they may, but I would imagine Manchester United will be where they will focus a lot of energy. 89 pace, 95 shot, 81 pass, 84 dribbling. 84 physical, 83 dribbling. Now Philip Lamb, I've maybe been a bit harsh on his stats. 87 for his base, 89 for his middle, and then 92 for his prime. Now I would imagine they may go a little bit higher. I've only just kind of went in relation to when I looked at all his rated cards. It seemed like his left back was around 87-88, his CDM was around 88-89, and his right back at his general best was like 93-94. So I thought, well, kind of maybe even go 92. But remember, team of seasons and end of an era is kind of inflate, but he would still be a nice card regardless. Sandor Kokzik, another player of the famous dynasty of Hungarian players throughout the 50s and the 60s. He played for Barcelona, part of the 1952 Olympic squad, and then part of the 1954 World Cup squad. His shooting and physical is what he prides on, and he is only 5'8". And could you imagine a striker of his nature with very high shooting, very high physical? That is like insane. Like, if I had a striker that had that kind of physical, I would be delighted. Kempes, 6 foot in height. His base icon 86 is for his later careers. He won the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1980 to justify the mid icon, and then his prime icon is for his 2 goals in the World Cup final that he played a part in. And you would imagine if that is your defining moment of your career, that is going to probably give you a very good chance of potentially happening. 82 pace, 93 shot, 80 pass, 93 dribbling, and 87 physical. And as I say, 6 foot in height, so he's definitely going to have a bit of usability. Kevin Keegan obviously has a good shout, I'd imagine. Like, Keegan is one of these players that could go, I think, any which way. Obviously, his prime icon is for when he was at Hamburg, and he won the Ballon d'Or twice in 3 years, which is kind of crazy, really, for any player. Like, to win it, like, in those days, because there's always so many players that could, like, stood out season on season. His mid icon is for his European Cup win in 1977, and then base icon is for 1974 FA Cup win. So definitely plenty food for thought. Jimmy Johnstone, another Scottish icon I had to feature, regarded one of Celtic and Scotland's greatest ever players. His prime icon, the 91, is for his 1967 Lisbon Lions European Cup win, part of the 1968 European Cup squad that featured a year later, and then his base icon is for his infamous 1974 World Cup. But even before then, which was the home international, that was infamous for when they got lost on the boat in Largs, his 74 World Cup performances were still pretty impressive, despite later in his career. Jorginho, another iconic Brazilian. I think he's one of these cards that could be very, very interesting. I would say, for me personally, for what he was able to achieve in a Brazilian context, I might be going a little bit harsh on, say, maybe the passing. Like, I might be a little bit light, it might be like 5 or 6 higher. But 89 pace, 88 shot, 81 pass, 93 dribbling, and 69 physical standing out. Just Fontaine, iconic striker in the 50s. Maybe going a bit far back, but for what he achieved as well in football is kind of like iconic, legendary status. His international debut alone was like one of the greatest performances ever, and it's like a base icon. His Reims career for his mid card, and then part of the 1958 World Cup squad for his prime icon. He won the Golden Boot. That's what one of his claim to fame is, and 94 shooting on that card could be very tasty. FACCHETTI is like a monster of a left back. He was 6'3", and when you look at his prime icon, it would be touching 88 pace, 84 shot and pass, 88 dribbling, defending, 95 physical. He won the European Cup and Ballon d'Or runner-up in 1965, Euros in 1968, and then won the Italian Cup in 1978. So he kind of achieved something that's, he was peaking his powers in the 60s, kind of waned off a little bit in late 60s, and then still showed that he had unbelievable ability in the late 70s. Dragan Dazic, apologies if I've butchered his name. This dude was phenomenal in the 60s and 70s as well. Big Serbian icon of like Yugoslavia and Serbian descent in the 60s, 70s. Part of the 60 Euro squad, that was where he was at his most impressive. European Cup in 1971, which he played a big part of, and then he played in France for Bastia, which was kind of seen as almost kind of like a shame, really, that for folk this was only getting to see him at the end of his powers. Teofilo Cubillas, very famous Peruvian South American player, most infamously when we played against Scotland, against him with Scotland in the 70s, we were like, oh, this will be easy, and we got kind of found out the hard way. But he won the Copa America in 1975. This is the only time Peru have won it, and then played a big part in the 70 and 78 World Cup. Very classy player, and would be someone that I think a lot of people, when you look at his stats, if they're kind of like that for a cam, I would quite happily have him. This is the one icon, folks, I would want the most. Mario Coluna, 5'7" in height, he's like Kante-esque. He scored in the 1961 European Cup final, part of the 66 World Cup, and then his base card is just kind of when he was up and coming. But he is a Portuguese legend up there with Eusebio. 80 pace, 83 shot, 90 pass, 86 dribbling, 84 defending, 87 physical. Might even have a little bit more pace, but I would imagine would be in the all 80 club and could be genuinely delicious to use. John Charles, this guy could have some mental stats. Like, he could be a centre back, that could be a striker, but he was 6'2". He played for Hereford, Leeds, part of the Holy Trinity with Juventus, but his striker prime card is what obviously was part of the Ballon d'Or. He was third in 1959. When he was at Leeds, he was starting off as a centre back, so that's kind of why he's a centre back. And then when he was played for Hereford, he was up top yet again, but he was never booked, never sent off, and honestly a Welsh legend in every shape and form. Cafu, just briefly, we all kind of know about Cafu, but the guy's a legend regardless, and would be a very popular icon to be had, especially for right backs. Now, I might be being a little bit harsh giving him an 86, 88, 91. He could be a little bit higher, but I feel I've got his stats hopefully about right. I've just tried to look at how he used to be kind of based back in the old days, but they're just kind of touching on the World Cup and then his days in Europe. But definitely a very appealing card. Paul Breitner, this dude is another German icon. Played everywhere on the park. He was part of the 1982 World Cup squad, playing centre mid. In the 70s he played right mid for Bayern, and then in the 1974 World Cup final he played left back. That is kind of crazy that this dude could play anywhere on the park, and this is the type of card where he could be all 80s, but even potentially all 85s for a prime icon. Or if they did a prime moments, it would be probably all 85s. But he's an absolute iconic player. Gordon Banks, another iconic goalkeeper. Prime icon would be his 1966 World Cup win. His mid icon would be the 1970 World Cup save, the one from Pele. And then 1964 League Cup final would be his base icon. But very nice stats, and maybe being a bit high on the overalls, 88, 91, 94, and maybe being a little bit high on diving, handling, going 96, 97, 90 kicking, 97 reflexes, 77 speed and 93 positioning. But you've got to remember, the save that he made against Pele, he needed some awesome reflexes and speed to do it. So you've kind of got to factor all that into account. But all in all, let me know, folks, is there anyone else that I may have missed from this set of icons? Obviously as well, they get fully released later on, so as far as we understand anyway. But hopefully we've got some of the icons that have been mentioned over 2 sets of the videos that maybe appeal to us. I know there's quite a few across the pile that I would be quite happy for. But let me know, folks, in the comments. As I said, take it easy all, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all later.